I'm delighted to welcome you to worship this morning. The music of our centering music is Prière à Notre-Dame with Rip Jackson at the organ. Thank you, Rip. Before we begin our worship this morning, I just have a couple of words to say about last week. For last week, our congregation spent many hours in great patience, listening to each other and sharing your views on the potential sale of our property on 3 Harrington Road. And with a 77% margin, you voted to accept Matt Feynman's offer on the property. And then we learned on Thursday that Matt withdrew that same offer. It has been a tough week, and we do not know where this will end. The Select Board of Lexington will consider proposals at their meeting on Monday night. In the meantime, I want to thank you all for your exemplary behavior during this process. You listened, you shared, you examined, and you stayed in community. Thank you. You are reflecting the beloved community that we hope to build. And we are not done. There will be more searching, more questions, more explorations of what it means to live up to our mission and what that mission must look like in these challenging times. And so as we begin this worship today, I offer gratitude for the lay leaders who have spent countless hours trying to help us all find our way through this mess. And I call us all to be our best selves today, tomorrow, and in the weeks to come. So please join with me for our opening words in reciting the words which call us together. This is our statement of purpose. If you would read this with me. Our shared purpose, to be a community of practice, to love with open hearts, to seek with open minds, and to serve with open eyes and willing hands. And now let us listen to the music of our introit as we listen to Laudamus Te from Vivaldi's Gloria, sung by Julia Jaffe and Elizabeth Walsh, with Rip Jackson on piano.
Laudamus te, laudamus te, benedicimus te, benedicimus te, glorifica, laudamus te, benedicimus te, adoramus te, glorificamus te, adoramus te. Adoramus te, adoramus te, glorificamus te. Laudamus te, benedicimus te, adoramus te, glorificamus te, adoramus te, adoramus te. Glorificamus te. Glorificamus te.
In our current scientific understanding of the origins of the universe, the light of everything that exploded from not quite nothing is the light that became the maybe everything of which we are barely a part. This light we now kindle here will become a light for each of us to carry forth as we find our way through the shadows on our path. Let us be grateful for the light in our lives, even as we honor the dark from which the light came. This is the time when each of us considers what this church, this congregation means to us and what we can do to support it. You may make an offering using the URL bit.ly/FPLEX donation or the QR code on the screen.
Thank you,
At
Ben.
this
But before
time-
we do that, I'd like us to join in singing our opening hymn, which
I'm
is Love
sorry.
Divine.
I
That's
jumped
okay.
ahead.
That's okay. Our opening hymn is Love Divine, and the words are in your order of service. It was written as the second, but we are singing it as the first.
Love divine, all loves excelling, joy of heaven to earth come down. Fix in us thy humble dwelling, all thy faithful mercies crown. Spirit, thou art all compassion pure, unbounded love thou art. Visit us with thy salvation. Enter every trembling heart. Come, Almighty, to deliver. Let us all alike receive. Suddenly return and nevermore thy temples leave. Thee we would be always blessing, serve thee as thy hosts above. Pray and praise thee without ceasing, glory in thy perfect love. Finish then thy new creation, pure and spotless let us be. Let us see thy great salvation, perfectly restored in thee. Change from glory into glory, till in heaven take our place, till we cast our crowns before thee, lost in wonder, love, and praise. Amen.
Good morning. I'm Lisa Maria Andreoli Steinberg. I'm the Director of Religious Education and Family Ministry for First Parish in Lexington. And today I want to share with you about walking meditation with dogs. So I grew up in the woods and I had a dog, our family dog. It's a very yappy Samoyed. Also not the sharpest dog that there ever was. And I had the responsibility of walking this dog. My share. My sister walked the dog as well. We lived in the woods, and so the walks were pretty much just trees and underbrush, ferns. Always made sure I knew where the poison ivy was. But one of the things about walking with a dog is that the dog does a little bit of walking of you at the same time. And for me, actually, when I was very little, when the dog and I weighed about the same amount, the dog actually did a lot of the walking of me because it was very eager to go and explore everything. But I would walk the dog and I would have to stop a lot because that's what dogs do. They don't really care if you're like, hey, we got to do this and get back and, be on a schedule. They're like, ooh, hey, that smells interesting. Oh, hey, that looks funny. Oh, what's this? Oh, what's that? And you're constantly starting and stopping. And you can choose to stop with the dog or just keep going. And one of the things about walking with a dog that does that is the way you're forced into taking those pauses and those moments and noticing your surroundings. I've been walking a lot since March, not being able to go to the gym. I don't currently have a dog, so I've been walking myself, but I've been trying to make sure that I stop at different places along the route that I do so that I can stop and notice and see how things are changing and how do I fit in to those changes. I don't run. And I want to tell you also why I am not really a runner. I did run in high school, and we had this cornfield loop for the cross country team that we would run either one way or the other. And one day when I was doing the cornfield loop at practice, I was going one way and some of my teammates were running the other way. And they approached me and, Lisa Maria, are you okay? What is everything all right? What's going on? And I hadn't realized this, but I had just stopped running and I was standing there looking at the trees. And I didn't realize I had stopped running. I was just looking at the trees. I had stopped and I had noticed. And that is why I don't run, because I like a slower pace so that I can do what I did when I was little with the dog and stop and notice. So if you find yourself moving too fast, if you find that maybe running isn't the right thing for you, then slow it down. Imagine if you don't have a dog to make you stop and notice that there's something in you that can give you that moment of pause so that you can look at the trees. You can notice the way that the algae has expanded in the pond or the river that you're walking over. Look to see how the changing of the forest floor that might be around you is different than it was a month ago. And then note how that also affects the changes in you. How, when you take these pauses, are you noticing what is going on in you? And so slowing down, taking those moments, letting the dog help you notice things, and remembering that we all have time to notice change. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a week of noticing.
Now, if you haven't already made an offering when last I spoke, then now is the time that you're able to do so. If you did make an offering before, you might consider making a second one. So the information should be up on the screen. The FP Likes donation URL and the QR code are there for you to help our church move forward in these troubled times. Let us speak together the words of our affirmation of faith, that we may be reminded of our spiritual connection, even at this time of physical separation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Our reading this morning is from Nick Penna. When he was in 5th grade, he wrote this poem, Waiting in Line. When you listen, you reach into dark corners and pull out your wonders. When you listen, your ideas come in and out like they were waiting in line. Your ears don't always listen. It can be your brain, your fingers, your toes. You can listen anywhere your mind not want to go. If you can listen, you can find answers to questions you didn't know. If you have listened, truly listened, you don't find yourself.
Thank you, Ben. Our 5th grade poet encourages us to listen. If you can listen, he says, you can find answers to questions you didn't even know. I love this young wisdom. For if we only listen to the answers of the questions we already know, then our response is limited to what we can conceive. But there is more. The world is boundless. And if we learn to listen past the boundaries of our own knowledge and our own experience, we can cultivate a feeling of boundlessness. We can look inwardly to the truth of our not knowing and embrace the openness. This week has been a difficult week, as have been so many since the pandemic came upon us. But the confluence of COVID and the election is uniquely difficult. We do not really know what is going on with the health of many of our top leaders to believe in. The one which will transcend the racial and cultural divide, which threatens to sink us all. Angel Kyodo Williams recognizes that her ancestors survived despite slavery, poverty, racism, and the rest. Her ancestors lived in the possibilities, which for her is a sense of staying in the possible. Staying in the possible creates a sense of boundlessness. She says, we have this idea of emptiness, and a lot of people in the Buddhist tradition, especially Zen, talk a lot about emptiness. And because of the way the Western mind thinks, we think empty, and it goes right to less. It means less. But I like to think of the same character or the same concept of emptiness as boundless. She says, when I think of the sense of boundless, I feel that I'm not bound by time. So in any given moment, I'm living on behalf of my ancestors and all that they did to arrive at this moment. My existence is proof that my ancestors' sense of fearlessness about their possibility actually came to be. Reverend Williams realizes that she was born out of her parents' sense of hope and their fearlessness. So what can that open for us? Do you have that feeling of connection to your parents' dreams for you? Reverend Williams is a spiritual director and a teacher of the Dharma, and she is an activist. For her, faith which professes love for all sentient beings is an empty faith if it does not lead us into action. But action must begin with our own self-transformation. And to this end, she has started an organization called the Center for Transformative Change. Reverend Williams describes her spiritual growth as coming from a place of resisting the rigid Christianity of her youth and of recognizing her own queerness when being queer was a word reviled by many. She says, queerness gave me the language for everything I know about liberation and freedom. Queerness actually opened the doorway to all of us being able to explore our identities. And living in the dichotomy that operated as either you were heterosexual or you were this other fixed thing, but there wasn't anything in between. And so what we now understand is a much more expansive spectrum of sexual expression, orientation, presentation, performance, was opening with that language of queerness, she said. So for me, the study of queer theology from either a Buddhist or a Christian perspective begins with this sense of living between the edges. It opens up a self-definition, which is liberatory because it is not confined to the either or. And I believe it is liberatory for all of us, whether we identify as men or women or anywhere in between, because it opens up the possibilities for living truthfully, spiritually, and creatively. It opens up pathways for all of us, each one of us, to find more humanity, more openness, and more full-hearted love. Williams calls us to our own inner transformation as the root of all societal change. She says, we cannot have a healed society. We cannot have change. We cannot have justice if we do not reclaim and repair the human spirit, if we don't do our inner work that has been underemphasized. But we have not trained ourselves to do the work that is upon us. To do our work, says Williams, is to come into the deep knowing of who we are. That's the stuff bringing down systems of oppression is made of. And so capitalism in its current form couldn't survive. Patriarchy wouldn't survive. White supremacy couldn't survive if enough of us set about the work of reclaiming the human spirit. Do you want to be part of those who work to reclaim the human spirit? I know I do. For Williams, change is temporary, but transformation is so deep that once it happens, we cannot go backwards. Spiritual transformation, it is what is needed before society can truly become what we need it to be. But here is Williams's challenge. She says, for us to transform as a society, we have to allow ourselves to be transformed as individuals. And for us to be transformed as individuals, we have to allow for the incompleteness of any of our truths and a real forgiveness for the complexity of human beings and what we're trapped inside of, so that we're both able to respond to the oppression, the aggression that we're confronted with. But if we're able to do that with a deep and abiding sense of, those are human beings, people, those are human beings at the other end of that baton, of that stick, of that policy. Those are human beings who are also trapped in something. And as a Buddhist, she says, they're also trapped in suffering. With compassion, she asks us to look deeply at those who we consider to be causing oppression and recognizing how they too are suffering. To reclaim our human spirit, we must allow this work to include reclaiming the sense of humanity of the people that are the current vehicles for those very forms of oppression. This is a challenge, especially now, especially when we see a direct correlation between those Republicans who refuse to wear masks and the high-ranking supporters and elected officials who have just been diagnosed with COVID. I don't know about you, but I'm having trouble being compassionate right now. I'm angry, and I know you are as well. But this Dharma teacher encourages us. She says, for sure, we can witness that there are ways in which they're benefiting from it, but there are also ways, if one trusts the human heart, that they must be suffering. And holding that at the core of who you are when you are responding to things, I think, is the way, the only way we really have forward to not just replicate systems of oppression for the sake of our own cause. I don't know if I have a big enough heart to take all that in, but I want to. And I want you to. I want to see and acknowledge how people caught in the trap of ignoring science and not wearing masks will eventually become sick, and some of them will die. They are suffering. But what can we do about it? William teaches us that we hate that we can't do anything about violence against women and children, against anti-Semitism, against police brutality, against anti-maskers. We hate this so much that we think we hate the perpetrators. But here's the kicker. We don't really know those agents of violence. So how can we truly generate hate for them? Perhaps what we truly hate is our feeling of helplessness. Perhaps what we truly hate is our own feeling of helplessness. If we can see the behavior of individuals as an indicator of the failure of society, it puts a different spin on it. If we can grieve for our society, which allows injustice to happen, we can feel grief instead of hatred. We can sense the human beings caught up as pawns in a violent society, and we can continue to respect the humanity and the suffering of all who are caught in this web of violence. So let us instead come from a place of love. I'm not saying you need to like everybody. I'm asking you to consider starting from a stance of love. Love is developing our own capacity for spaciousness within ourselves. Love is recognizing that all others are just as they are. They exist, as do we. Love is feeling boundless, connected to those who have gone before us to show us the way, and connected to each other with hope for the possibilities that always exist. Love is space to grow, to hold each other, to dream, and to never lose our sense of hope. The words that Reverend Angel Kyodo Williams wrote in November of 2016 feel as strong today as they did then. I close with her words. She said, I don't have a lot of words, but I have a lot of faith. I know the road feels slow and winding. We seem to need the pain to cut to the core to emerge from the sleepwalk of despair and feel through the numbness of disconnect and indifference. But if we let ourselves feel this, we will be better for it. We will wake up and reach out and finally tap into our love for one another and our planet. We will breathe deeply and remember we have survived worse. But now it is time to live and to love and to see justice. And in the meantime, hold tight to someone you love and take care of someone you don't know. Amen. And blessed be. And now I invite you to listen to the music of our anthem as Rip Jackson sings Across the Universe by John Lennon.
Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slither while they pass, they slip away across the universe. Pools of sorrow, waves of joy are drifting through my open mind, possessing and caressing me. Jaya Guru Deva. Nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Images of broken light which dance before me like a million eyes. They call me on and on across the universe. thoughts meander like a restless wind inside a letterbox. They tumble blindly as they make their way across the universe. Jaya Guru Deva. Oh, nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Sounds of laughter, shades of life are ringing through my open ears, inciting and inviting me. Limitless, undying love, which shines around me like a million suns and calls me on and on across the universe. Jaya Guru Deva. Oh, nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Jaya Guru Deva. Jaya Guru Deva. Jaya Guru Deva. Jaya Guru Deva.
I'd like to invite you into a time of prayer and meditation. My words this morning are by Jack Kornfield, who wrote this in 2016, and he calls this Dharma for a difficult time. Whatever your point of view, take time to quiet the mind and tend to the heart. Then go out and look at the sky. Remember vastness. There are seasons to all things, gain and loss, praise and blame, expansion and contraction. Learn from the trees. Practice equanimity and steadiness. Remember the timeless Dharma amidst it all. Think of the best of human goodness. Let yourself become a beacon of integrity with your thoughts, words, and deeds. Integrity in speech and action, virtue and non-harming bring blessings. Remember the noble truths, no matter the politics or the season. Greed, hatreds, and ignorance cause suffering. Let them go. Love, generosity, and wisdom bring the end of suffering. Foster them. Remember the Buddha's counsel. Hatred never ends by hatred, but by love alone is healed. This is the ancient and eternal law. The human heart has freedom to choose love, dignity, and respect. In every circumstance, embody respect and cultivate compassion for all. Let yourself become a beacon of Dharma. Amidst the changes, shine with courage and trust. This is your world. Plant seeds of goodness and water them everywhere. Then blessings will grow for yourself and for all. I'd like to invite you to share the joys and sorrows that you carry within your own selves. If we could put them in the chat for each other to share. I'd like to lift up our memorial yesterday for Luke Counts. It was so good to see so many of you there, and our love and blessing go to Connie and Margaret and Laura and all of the Counts family. And I'd like to lift up all the people in our world who are still suffering with COVID, including our political leaders. This is a challenging time. But there are good things in our day, in the beauty of this autumn day. And there are good things in this community, in the joy of being together. And so now, as Rip plays, when he is finished, we will join in singing our closing hymn, which is filled with loving kindness.
Please join in singing with me. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
As we go forth today, may you cultivate loving kindness in your life and in the lives of those you meet. May you cultivate a sense of boundlessness within yourself, such that those who see your open eyes will be encouraged to seek within themselves such a sense of open hopefulness. And may love create spaciousness within you and around you until we meet again. Amen. The music of our postlude is the air in D by Johann Sebastian Bach. This concludes our worship for today. You are invited to stay for coffee hour by joining one of the breakout rooms, which Jim Pogue will be inviting you to do in a moment. I will be staying on after the breakout rooms in the main room. So if you'd like to come and talk with me about things that are going on in our church or in your lives, I will be there waiting for you. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.